The 38th session of the Senate, in the first regular session of the 17th Congress, is hereby called to order. Let us rise for the opening prayer. Heavenly Father, we open by praising you, for you are our Creator and our Provider. We owe everything to you. We also give you thanks. Thank you for the blessings, the gifts, and for taking good care of us. Thank you too for returning our brother, Senator Manny Pacquiao, to us safe and sound and successful and victorious. We would like to pray for the safety as well as the success of our other colleagues who cannot be with us today as they pursue their business abroad, especially Senator Frank Drilon, who is about to receive a very prestigious award from the government of Japan. Dear God, we believe that you have great plans for the Philippines. We humbly ask your guidance in everything we have to do for the good of our nation. We continue to pray for unity and peace in our country. May the discord between our brothers and sisters be healed by your divine grace and intervention, so our nation can finally be united for the good of our country and for the success of our government. May you use each one of us here in the Senate to bring glory to your name. Please continue to give us the wisdom and courage to practice prudence, temperance, justice, and fortitude in our daily lives. And may you continually shower us with your heavenly graces of faith, hope, and charity to guide us in our lives. In closing, allow us to quote Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. This we pray in your holy name. Amen. Secretary, please call the roll.
Roll call of Senator members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, Drilon, Ejercito, Escudero, Gatchalian, Gordon, Hunasan, Hontiveros, Lacson, Ligada, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Po, Recto, Soto, Trillanes, Villanueva, Villar, Zuberi. Senate President Pimentel.
With 13 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 37th session Monday, November 7, and consider the same as approved.
There is a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal of Monday, November 7, 2016, and consider the same as approved. Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Mr. President, we'd like to acknowledge some guests in the Senate, Vice Mayor and Barangay officials of District 1 of Nagcarlan, Laguna, headed by Vice Mayor Amelia Hernandez and Councilor Arevalo, Mr. President.
Welcome to the local government officials of Nagcarlan, Laguna, and to all of our guests.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Chamber, I move that before we consider the reference of business, I move to consider consider PS Resolution 217, taking into consideration PS Resolution 219, 220, 225, 227, and 228.
There is a motion for us to consider before the reference of business Senate Resolution number 217, together with the related resolutions 219, 220, 227, 228. Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
We ask Secretary to read only the title of the measure without prejudice to inserting into the records the entire text of the resolution.
Secretary.
Resolution commending and congratulating Senator Emmanuel Manny Pacquiao for defeating G.C. Vargas in his comeback boxing match held in Las Vegas, Nevada, and being declared as the new WBO welterweight champion, sponsored by Senator Vicente Soto III.
Mr. President, instead of sponsoring, I understand that Senator Mixubiri will also be co-sponsoring it. Let me just state for the record that the resolution is self-explanatory, and to consider also, aside from the resolution I filed, to consider 219, 220, 225, 227, and 228, subject to style. There is one whereas that I would want to include, which is not present in most of the resolutions. And this reads, Mr. President, whereas Senator Manny Pacquiao deserves to be commended because notwithstanding the fact that he has been diligently working as a member of the Philippine Senate, he was able to successfully juggle with it his boxing career, make a return in the ring, and regain the WBO welterweight title. Mr. President, at the proper time, perhaps we may include that whereas. But at this point, may we ask Senator Zubiri to co-sponsor the resolution, Mr. President.
Senator Zubiri is recognized to co-sponsor Senate Resolution number 217.
Maraming salamat, Mr. President, Majority Floor Leader. Isang malaking karangalan para sa akin ang bigyang pugay ngayong hapon na ito, ang isang kaibigan at kapwang mambabatas at kapwang taga Mindanao na si Senator Manny Pacquiao. I am particularly proud of the fact that this honorable senator and honorable champion was actually born in Barangay Magsaysay, Kibawe, Bukidnon. Mr. President, it was in his short years in Bukidnon, probably eating our beef there, before he moved to General Santos and grew up in General Santos. It's been 21 years now that Senator Pacquiao has been engaged in the world of professional boxing. Barely 5 feet tall and weighing in 106 pounds, when the young Manny Pacquiao set for a career in 1995 that would change his life forever. Now, more than 2 decades after, the light flyweight from Gensan and Bukidnon is known as one of the greatest athletes the world has ever known. Maraming pumuna sa muling pagbalik ng ating pambansang kamao sa boxing ring sa kabila ng pagkakahalal nito bilang isang senador ng Republika ng Pilipinas. He juggled his training with his duties as legislator of this august chamber. At meron po nagsasabi, at minsan ay iniinsulto pa ang ating pambansang kamao at sinasabing, paano naman siya magte-training and senador siya? Baka hindi siya pumapasok. At gusto ko pong sabihin sa ating mga kababayan na hindi po nag-absent ni minsan ang ating pambansang kamao in these last few months while training for his fight with Mr. Vargas. In fact, he's very active in attending committee hearings and in participating in deliberations and discussions on the floor. You know, the difficulty there, Mr. President, is in the Senate, there are a lot of mental challenges. Mental challenges can also be taxing to one's body. Kaya ako'y saludo sa kanya dahil coming out of the Senate, fighting all these mental challenges, he still has the time and the effort of training hard to win championship fights. Manny Pacquiao, no doubt, is one of the greatest boxers in the world, and history would remember him as the first and only boxer to be hailed an 8-division world champion and the first boxer to win in the lineal championship in 5 different weight classes. But history does not stop him from being an octuple world champion. He made a habit of making history. And this time, Manny has set his mark as the first sitting senator to win a boxing title. The first sitting senator. This he triumphantly accomplished after his match last Sunday against Jesse Vargas. Kaya mga kapatid, saludong-saludo po ako sa kanya, the Filipino boxing icon, Senator Manny Pacquiao's exemplary performance in a resounding roar of his return in the ring. And I filed this resolution number 225, to congratulate and commend Senator Manny Pacquiao for winning his match against Jesse Vargas. I now stand before you to honor him for his invaluable contribution to Philippine sports and consistently bringing pride to our country. He is not just the pride of the Senate, he is our national pride and inspiration to many. Mabuhay ka, Senator Manny Pacquiao.
Thank you, Senator Zubiri. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, may we open the period of amendments, Mr. President?
Any objection? Period of amendment for Senate Resolution number 217 is hereby in order.
Mr. President, before the resolutory portion, insert a whereas, which states, whereas Senator Manny Pacquiao deserves to be commended because notwithstanding the fact that he has been diligently working as a member of the Philippine Senate, he was able to successfully juggle with it his boxing career, make a return in the ring, and regain the WBO welterweight title, semicolon, Mr. President. So move.
There is a proposed amendment. Any objection? As read by the Majority Leader. There being none, the amendment is approved.
Mr. President, I move to adopt PS Resolution 217, taking into consideration PS Resolution 219, 220, 225, 227, and 228, and that all members of the Senate present be made co-authors of the measure.
The period of amendment is terminated, and there is now a motion to approve Senate Resolution number 217, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolutions number 219, 220, 225, 227, 228, and making all senators present as co-authors thereof. Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. May we recognize Senator Manny Pacquiao?
Senator Manny Pacquiao is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to manifest my thanksgiving for the overflowing love and support that you have expressed. It is with great honor that I am the subject of Senate Resolution 217, authored by the Majority Floor Leader, Senator Vicente C. Soto III, and co-sponsored by Senator Mig Subere. I deeply appreciate the resolution commending and congratulating me for defeating G.C. Vargas. My comeback boxing match, where I was declared as the new WBO welterweight champion, is dedicated to all boxing fans and to all of you who believe in me. Nag-uumapaw ang aking pasasalamat sa suporta ninyo at sa sambayanang Pilipino noong hinarap ko si G.C. Vargas. Buong puso kong inaalay ang aking tagumpay sa inyo at sa ating mahal na Pilipinas. Bakas pa ang mga pasa sa aking mukha, subalit hindi ko ito alintana. Mapasaya lamang at makatulong sa ating mga kababayan at makapagbigay ng karangalan sa ating bayan. Mr. President, patuloy po akong nagpapasalamat sa Poong May Kapal dahil sa kanyang pagpapala at paggabay. Nararapat lamang na siya ay sambahin, purihin at pasalamatan. Boxing is my passion. I come fully alive wherever I am in the ring, but I have a greater passion, serving our country. Just like you, Mr. President, my heartbeat is for our fellow men. My fight with G.C. Vargas is a story ended, but the tougher battles outside the boxing ring are yet to be won. There are bigger problems that we need to confront. There are more complicated issues that we need to clarify. Mr. President, as partners for change, we are solution providers. We shall continue to investigate, debate, and legislate. We shall keep fighting for what is right. As nation builders, we shall keep moving forward. Together we will declare that greater things are yet to come and yet to be done for our nation. To manifest my heartfelt thanksgiving, Mr. President, I would like to donate my WBA welterweight belt to the Senate of the Philippines. The honor does not belong to me alone, but to every Filipino. May it serve as an inspiration for everyone to pursue excellence and continue fighting for our nation's sovereignty. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Pacquiao.
We have a 1-minute suspension, Mr. President, to congratulate the gentleman from General Santos from Mindanao.
Session is suspended.
Sa museum mo.
Ay, nakakagasgas ba? Nakakagasgas yata. So, ikaw muna, Secretary, si Gov, sa Senate property na ito, so, Kasi kailangan sa ibang belts nila. Sa dami pa ng belts ni Manny. Sige po na muna, sir. Turnover na sa'yo. Malakas ka ng pabalata ka naman kay Manny. Yung kay si Rolando Navarrete daw, binenta daw yung kanya by 25,000 pesos. Pero yun, mas mahal. Mahal yan kasi sa bigat na lang. Kinikwek. Mayor B. Diba? Kala ko Tito Sen. 140.
Then he's back here again. It's like nothing happened.
Pakitanong si Tito Sen.
Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Adjourn muna ito. Thank you, Mr. President. I was just adjourning the meeting beside me. Okay, suspended. The meeting is suspended, Mr. President, over here. Before, again, with the permission of the chamber, before we proceed with the reference of business, I move that we recognize Senator Risa Hontiveros to speak on a matter of public interest.
Is there any objection? There being none, Senator Hontiveros is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise on a matter of personal and collective privilege. I rise on behalf of Susan Quimpo, a prepubescent girl during the early years of martial law, who spent her weekends packing cooked rice for detainees at detention centers holding political prisoners. 5 of her siblings were imprisoned during martial law, all of them student activists belonging to the underground movement. Her brother Nathan was stripped naked and clubbed several times by his captors. Her brother Jan, and I quote from her book, Subversive Lives, had his head repeatedly immersed in a commode filled with urine. Water was injected into his testicles, and his feet were doused, then jabbed with live wire. Jan Quimpo, encircled in this photo, joined the ranks of the desaparecidos. And the last conversation Susan had with him was when he asked her to leave him some dinner. Another brother, June, was shot in Nueva Ecija in 1981. I rise on behalf of Sixto Carlos, now a jolly man in his 70s, with ruddy cheeks and an easy laugh. He was arrested with no charges filed in 1978 and put under solitary confinement for 2 years. He was viciously beaten. had boiling water poured at him, and was hung from the ceiling by his handcuffed hands. In his own words, he said, "I was held on either arm by 2 men, and the 3rd man sat on my lap. The blindfold was removed and replaced by a towel on my face. They commenced to put water over the towel on my face. I had the sensation of drowning." Mr. President, this is what was known as waterboarding, an innocuous name for a torture technique so repulsive and dehumanizing. I rise on behalf of Eta Rosales, former Congresswoman and former Chairperson of the Commission on Human Rights, who was repeatedly raped and tortured during martial law. She recounts her torture under the hands of her prison guards. "They tried to make me speak by burning me, pouring what felt like hot wax from a burning candle on my arms and legs. When that didn't work, they tore off my clothes, pressed the barrel of a gun against my temple, and played Russian roulette." When she was elected Congresswoman of Akbayan in 1998, Mr. President, she met one of her captors who had now become her colleague. "The last time I met you," Eta said with her trademark candor, "was in the military safe house where I was tortured." I rise for them, Mr. President, and I rise for all the victims of martial law. Ako po'y tumatayo sa harap ninyo ngayon, alang-alang sa mga na-torture, mga pinatay, mga kinulong ng rehimeng Marcos. Ako'y tumatayo alang-alang sa kanilang mga mahal sa buhay, mga magulang, asawa, at anak na inulila ng diktadura. Para po sa kanila ang resolusyon na ihahain ko sa Senado ngayong hapon. I rise to tell them during this winter of anxiety and uncertainty that there are many of us who still remember. I want to tell them that there are mothers like myself who tell their outspoken millennials that their freedoms in social media did not come for free, and that their counterparts in the 1970s were being thrown in prison for speaking their mind. Gusto kong ikwento sa kanila yung mga guro sa mga paaralan kung saan ako nag-donate ng librong Never Again ni Raisa Robles na nagsasabing sa sarili nilang kusa at pagpupunyagi, binabahagi nila ang kahindik-hindik na mga pangyayari sa panahon ng diktadura sa kanilang mga estudyante. I want to tell them about the many young people I have met, so far removed from the stereotype of the uncaring, self-absorbed millennial, who ask me what they can do to fight the forces of historical revisionism that are at work, and who assure me that the struggle to preserve our collective memory is a struggle their generation shares with ours. Hindi ko po panghihimasukan ang pasya ng Korte Suprema hinggil sa paglibing ng dating diktador sa libingan ng mga bayani. We cannot second-guess its wisdom, even as we cannot imagine how it must be for Sixto Carlos, Eta Rosales, and the Quimpo family, who will live with the reality that the architect of their torture and the torture and death of their kin has now been designated a hero. Habang tinuturo natin sa ating mga kabataan ang karahasan ng martial law dahil yun ang nakalagay sa Republic Act No. 10368, ililibing naman daw natin sa libingan ng mga bayani ang siyang naghasik ng karahasan na ito. Habang tayo'y nagbabayad ng danyos sa mga biktima ng martial law at sa kanilang mga pamilya, ililibing natin daw sa libingan ng mga bayani ang dahilan ng pagbayad ng danyos. But we also know that the decision to give the late dictator a hero's burial lies ultimately in the hands of President Rodrigo Duterte. I call on the President to respond to the challenge of history and reject with finality all plans to give Marcos a hero's burial. The libingan ng mga bayani is the designated place for Filipino soldiers, war veterans, and citizens whose contributions to the nation render them fit to be called heroes. Given the long history of the Filipino people with tyranny and oppression, the libingan has been created to honor the memory of our brave countrymen and women who fought for freedom and liberty even in the face of superior force, so that the present generation may remember and emulate their legacy. It should be the final resting place of heroes, a symbolism that is not lost on the Marcos family, who has been lobbying feverishly for his burial, and, if our president is correct, even funded his campaign to secure this concession. Mr. President, in Germany, Adolf Hitler's initial grave is now a car park in Berlin. Idi Amin, the Ugandan dictator notorious for maintaining torture chambers in Kampala, is not even buried in his own country. In Serbia, Slobodan Milosevic's party pushed heavily for his burial in the Alley of the Greats, but was rebuffed. He is now buried in his hometown. In Haiti, Francois Papadoc Duvalier, who brought Haiti to economic ruin, used voodoo legends to control his people, and executed his political opponents, was denied a state funeral after his death. His grave in Port-au-Prince is now in shambles. Pol Pot, known as the Butcher of Cambodia, was unceremoniously burned in a pile of rubbish. His cremation site in An Long Veng is now a tourist destination, and many Cambodians travel to the site to spit on it. Muammar Gaddafi's body, after being displayed for 5 days by the new leaders of Libya, was laid to rest in a simple, unmarked grave. Ganito po tinatrato ang mga diktador sa ibang bansa, Mr. President. Ang kanilang puntod ay hindi puntod ng parangal. Kung ito man ay bibigyan ng pansin, ito ay para magturo ng leksyon sa mga susunod na henerasyon. Ito ay para sabihin, huwag tularan. Habang dito sa Pilipinas, ang mga diktador ay tinuturing bang bayani at binibigyan ng parangal, at ang biktima ng diktador ay pinagdududahan at isinasa isang tabi? But, Mr. President, it is not only for the victims of martial law that I rise, for the generation of our parents, and for our generation who has lived with the enduring wounds of martial law. I also rise for our younger generations, those who will only get to listen to the stories of our wounds, and who we hope will see in those stories our deepest truths. I rise for our millennials, who will probably never meet Susan and her siblings, or June Carlos, or Eta Rosales, but who we hope will realize that the heroes of martial law, many of them were young persons like themselves. Ang nagpabagsak sa diktadura ay katulad lang din nila. Katulad din ng aking mga anak, masayahin, palabarkada, palatawa, may pangarap sa buhay. Ngunit tumalima noong hinamon ng kasaysayan. Mr. President, nagpasya na ang Korte Suprema, but no tombstone, no grandiose cemetery can change the fact that Ferdinand Marcos was not a hero. He was a plunderer, torturer, and a thief, with a family now seeking to rewrite history to serve their interests. He co-opted institutions, in the past this Senate included, in order to consolidate all power to himself. It is our duty as senators, Mr. President, as Filipinos, as students of history, to stand against this travesty and say, as has been said before, never again. Only then can we look back to the past with pride and to the future with hope. Let us not fail the test of history. Mr. President, as I have previously discussed with the Majority Floor Leader and with the permission of the body, I would like to have this privileged speech considered as sponsorship speech for Senate Resolution number 86 and kindly request the Majority Floor Leader to subject it to a vote. Marami pong salamat, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Antiveros. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, may I move for a suspension?
Session is suspended. Sabi ko bumalik eh. Okay, next question. Session is resumed. Majority Leader, can you tell us the parliamentary situation?
Yes, Mr. President, before the suspension, Senator Risa Ontiveros delivered the privilege speech. And forthrightly, she mentioned that she would want that particular privilege speech be considered as a sponsorship speech of a resolution which she filed about a month ago, which is PS Resolution 86. We may consider that as soon as we do take up PS Resolution 86, but not at the moment. And towards the end of her privilege speech, she aired a motion to consider and ask the Majority Leader to consider PS Resolution 86. Indeed, she even mentioned that beforehand, and as a matter of fact, it is in the agenda. But again, anything in the agenda will have to be taken up by the body. So at this point, the situation, Mr. President, is that we would like to bring forward the motion of Senator Hontiveros that PS Resolution 86 be considered. I would like to ask the body to consider the motion at this point, Mr. President, because I have to be very candid about this. I am not comfortable at this point because I know for a fact that the Supreme Court has already decided on the matter. It could be the sense of some of the members of the Senate that with a majority vote, it could be the sense of the Senate, but at this point, I am of the belief that a discussion on the matter would be very divisive. So I would rather take up her motion and bring it before the body to decide, Mr. President.
Mr. President?
Senator Ontiveros?
Mr. President, out of respect for the sentiment expressed by the Majority Leader that indeed the Supreme Court has already spoken, may I just hasten to reassure the Majority Leader and all colleagues in the Senate that, in fact, as the Majority Leader had mentioned, I filed this resolution number 86 a full month ago, but on the advice of senior members of the Chamber, including the good Majority Leader, I postponed requesting that it be read out and voted upon earlier, precisely out of respect for the process that the Supreme Court was then undertaken. And therefore, today, with their ruling on the cases, I saw it fit to request, finally, that this resolution be read out and voted upon by us, simply to express the sense of the Senate, the opinion of the Senate about this issue on this very day that the Supreme Court has finally ruled on the cases. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The Chair will now restate the pending motion. There is a motion to consider. Senator Recto?
Mr. President, do we have a copy of the decision of the Supreme Court?
Personally, I don't have a copy. The Senate, does the Senate have a copy? The Senate has no copy yet.
Wouldn't it be prudent before we act on the resolution or the motion to adopt the resolution at the appropriate time to first read the decision of the Supreme Court? Because I'm reading the text of the resolution, Mr. President. And if the Supreme Court's decision says, for example, that assuming that there is no law prohibiting the former president from being buried in the libingan ng mga bayani, then the proper course of action is to pass a law. What is the effect of a resolution passed by the Senate? Does it have a force of law, Mr. President? Will it have a force of law?
This is a resolution falling under the category of a simple resolution which expresses the sentiment or the opinion or the feelings of the collegial body called the Senate. Okay. So no, it has no binding effect.
It has no binding effect.
Binding effect.
And this is a legal issue at the moment decided by the Supreme Court. What happens next, Mr. President, after the Supreme Court decides?
parties can file motions for reconsideration,
Okay.
and some opt not to file, and then the person or the institution or the body restrained by a previous order of the Supreme Court will no longer feel restrained because the case has been decided. So that person, body, or institution can now proceed with its challenged decision or action.
In effect, what the Senate President is also saying is that the ball will now go to the office of the President. Is that correct?
I think Senator De Lima is one of the petitioners, so probably she can tell us what the case is all about. But judging from the title of the case, it is the decision of the office of the President which is
Office
being
of the
questioned
President.
or challenged before
That
the
is
Supreme
correct.
Court.
Now, it is possible that there could be amendments to this resolution. Instead of just expressing the sense of the Senate, the possibility of expressing the sense of the Senate addressed to the President. I mean, if that is the next
The
step.
resolution, when it is considered, can still undergo period of amendments.
Or, at the appropriate time, a joint resolution could be filed in both chambers of Congress.
But that is not the...
What is a joint resolution, Mr. President? Will that have an effect of law?
The joint resolution which undergoes 3 readings would have the force and effect of law.
Of law, right? And like I said, the prudent thing to do then is to first look at the Supreme Court decision. If the Supreme Court decision says there is no law prohibiting, it might be the sense of members of this chamber and that of the House, through a joint resolution at the appropriate time, a simple joint resolution would have the effect of law. Isn't that correct, Mr. President?
Yes, a joint resolution is passed just like a bill, and then it also has the participation of the President. He signs the joint
So I
resolution.
just wanted to put my observations on record. I will not oppose the motion of the distinguished lady from pursuing a vote on her resolution, but I just wanted to put on record my observations that it might be incumbent upon some members of the Senate to amend the resolution, but it will be difficult to amend the resolution without looking at the Supreme Court decision. So just to put that on the record, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Recto.
Mr. President.
Yeah. Okay, Senator De Veros, you want to respond?
Actually, Mr. President, in response to an earlier statement by the Senate President, indeed, a Senate resolution expressing the sense of the Senate would have no legal binding effect. At the same time, the decision of the Supreme Court does not command a burial. The decision to bury the former president is ultimately an executive act, and like many proposals before the executive, the Senate can, of course, weigh in with its wisdom, which is why I continue to support the statement earlier of the majority leader that we can put that question to the chamber if we may please vote on the resolution today. Thank you, Mr. President. If we may consider.
Actually, there's already a pending motion which
Thank you,
I just
Mr.
need to
President.
restate. But Senator Subiri, before I restate the motion.
Yes, I'd like to agree with the position of Senate Minority Floor Leader Ralph Recto. I myself have not seen the decision of the Supreme Court. I have not heard what the merits are. I'm not a lawyer, Mr. President, and I would really like to read it to have a clear knowledge of why 9 justices voted in favor, why 5 justices voted against, to be able to come up with a rational decision on this vote. Because if it's either a legal issue and an emotional issue, I would like to tend to believe that we make objective decisions here, not subjective decisions, and rushing to a vote on this particular issue at this time, and that's why I had asked Risa if we could do it tomorrow, so that our staff our legal team can actually get a copy of the Supreme Court decisions and decide on this issue tomorrow, Mr. President. That is my opinion. I submit, Mr. President.
Majority Leader, do we take into account the suggestion or motion of Senator Subiri? Senator Gordon is raising his hand. Senator Gordon is recognized.
You know, Mr. President, we have been under siege from the shadow of President Marcos since he passed on. This country feels the divisiveness because every time something happens here, the name of the Marcoses are mentioned all the time. And in spite of that, rightly or wrongly, the Marcoses are back. And people elect them to office. On the matter of the burial of President Marcos, you know, my own experience with the president, former president, is not a very, very glorious one. My mother was arrested, and I felt that why should I go and explain myself to the people in martial law at the time? Even having words with one of the most fearful generals at the time, Tomas Diaz, with the help of Senator Angara, the older one. We went to Olivas at the time. And we were harassed in elections also, Mr. President. I locked horns with President Marcos when I was in the Student Council of UP on the issue of the Cultural Center. I remember I was even told that your mother, every time she comes here, she asks for things for Olongapo. Why don't you go back to the poor and the prostitutes of Olongapo? And I was stung by that remark. And I said, Mr. President, I will forgive that remark. I will even forget it. I think it is beyond your dignity as President of the Republic to even utter such a remark. When I was in the Constitutional Convention, I put my name on the ban Marcos. And I was brought to Malacanang, invited to Malacanang, called by Speaker Villarreal in Bayview Hotel. And before I even left, I told Senator Manlapus, for which I was aligned with at that time, I told him if I changed my vote, I would have been bought. That's to ensure I would not be bought. I've taken a very strong position in the past, Mr. President. But you know, in this country, as you know, when I finally became mayor, you get caught into the political hoopla. And at some point in time, you have to make decisions sometimes that doesn't allow you for long-term decisions, but short-term, benefit. Because long-term decisions are a luxury at the time. And so, Mr. President, my take on this is that if the Supreme Court has already decided 9-5, that is not a small majority. That is a majority. And if they have decided on that, why must we inflict this divisiveness again within the Senate? We respect. I'm one of the first ones to respect the distinguished lady from, shall I say everywhere? I've always had highest respect for all our colleagues here. And therefore, she's entitled to her opinion, I'm entitled to mine. But I don't think we should inflict upon ourselves here the clash of having to vote, even if we don't want to vote because it's already decided on. We're not washing our hands in here. If I'm asked about what I think of Mr. Marcos, I would be very frank. I will say the good things, I will say the bad things. But the world is not, caught in a time lock. I would not want to be caught in a time lock forever. Mr. President, therefore, I don't want postponements, actually. And I agree with the only reason why I stood up here is because I agree with the Senator Rector's position that we have to take a look at the decision. And when we look at the decision, we still have to consider the fact that if we make a resolution, we're just waving a little flag here. For some of us, it's a flag of honor. For some of us, it's a flag of principle, depending on what we want to do. That still has to go to the lower house if we are going to make it a joint resolution. It will take time again. Time that is important because we're right now discussing many things in the country. The budget, the killings in Baybay, Leyte. There are going to be harder decisions from what I see, Mr. President. A lot harder decisions will be awaiting the Senate. It is good for us to practice the kind of principled stance that we have to make. That's why I never left here. I'm ready to vote, Mr. President. I only left because I accepted the donation for the Red Cross. upstairs. I came back, and I told Senator Rivera that I would be back, and that I even asked her to call me back when I had to come here. So my point, Mr. President, is I think there is wise counsel in the counsel of Senator Recto, being the grandson of one of our esteemed senators here, Claro Recto, that we take a look at what the Supreme Court actually said. But as a lawyer, you and I know that 9 to 5 is not a cum se cum sa decision. Even if they say, now there is no, this is the view of the Supreme Court, there is no law violated, I'm just assuming, and now let the President decide what he wants to do, and there will be no squawk from the Supreme Court. He is allowed to do it. So having said that, Mr. President, if we put this to a vote, it will divide us again. I don't want to be categorized as an enemy of our people here, our friends here. We can disagree, we can agree to disagree and respect one another. And that is why, kung ayaw natin, sabihin natin, magkamayan tayo pagkatapos. Hindi naman tayo kailangan magkamatayan. Pero tama yun na tayo ay huminahon at tingnan natin kung anong diskarte ng Supreme Court talaga para malaman natin for sure kung may mag-aamen. Baka mag-aamen tayo, di natin alam. O baka naman wala nang i-aamen, Mr. President. So I think the wise move is to support Senator Recto for the moment and let us see what that decision really entails. It will not change my vote. My vote is to put Mr. Marcos to sleep. I think Mr. Marcos has been sleeping through the ages. Let the issue of Mr. Marcos go to sleep. Because ang tagal-tagal lang gising yan eh. Palagi tayo nagkakagulo. You know, we're divided to pro-Marcos, anti-Marcos. I remember, I saw Sixto Carlos picture there, Mr. President. I was against Mr. Marcos in the council, and there was Sixto Carlos shouting to his lungs content, saying, "Yan si Gordon, si Ortega, tuta ni Marcos." You know, this is what they play on. Yung bang categorization, putting you in a warp, in a time warp or whatever, in a category. I don't play those games, Mr. President. And so it is important that we all make decisions here. When the time comes, let's all make the decision, and let's do it. So my suggestion is, let's go for the proposal of Mr. Recto and Mr. Subiri as well. I have not forgotten him. I was mad at him because he walked out on me just a while ago. I thought he was trying to evade the issue, but I know Mr. Subiri was going to come back, and he did come back. He just ate. You know, one cannot fault one for being hungry. But having said that, Mr. President, let us proceed with this issue, because I also would like to make a privileged speech. Today is Haiyan Day, the 3rd anniversary. Yolanda. And I would like to honor the volunteers and just share the great experience of the Rectors with the body here. I do not have dialogues with history, although the journal will show the history, but I'd like everybody to have that feel that we were able to get back on our feet again. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator
With the
Gordon.
indulgence of Senator Villar, may we recognize Senator Poe.
Senator Poe is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank my colleague, Senator Risa, for taking a principled stand. As it's already been mentioned, this has been a divisive issue. I am a martial law baby. I've grown up. My family and the Marcoses have known each other, but we fight for what we believe in and what we learn through the course of history. And although Republic Act number 10368, or the Human Rights Victims Reparation and Recognition Act of 2013, recognizes the atrocities committed during the martial law period, the highest court of the land has spoken, and I believe we need to respect it. With this, I believe that even if some of us can forgive, I think we should focus our attention so that we will always learn from history. I know that this is your initiative to be able to include as part of the programs in our public education what happened during the course of history and martial law. I think that is a constructive way to be able to address this issue through education, through empowerment, so that our countrymen can make informed decisions. Definitely, we should not forget. At the same time, there's been a lot of question also about the executive power to be able to determine who who should be buried in the libingan ng mga bayani. Therefore, it's become a political issue, just like in my own personal experience, the decision on who should be national artists of the country. I think this is something that we need to take up to amend the law so that it does not rest on one person to decide who is deserving of being buried in the libingan ng mga bayani. Nonetheless, I know that we all have our personal opinions. We need to be able to move forward from this. I think that it's been mentioned that this is not about party lines, this is not about families, this is about moving forward with the right perspective of history, and hopefully which will not deter but contribute to nation building. And so, Mr. President, in my own personal opinion, I think that there is sound logic and also reason in what Senator Recto has stated. It should not change our personal position, whether we agree with it or not, but since the Supreme Court has spoken, and we also have equal powers with the judiciary, I think that we should be more prudent and responsible now with whatever resolutions we will be taking up in this body. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Poe. Majority Leader, who shall I recognize?
Yes, Senator Aquino, Pangilinan, and then Hontiveros again, Mr. President.
Senator Aquino is recognized.
Mr. President, maraming salamat. Just a short manifestation. Unang-una sa lahat, sa pagkakaalam ko, ang desisyon ng Supreme Court ay isang desisyon na nagsasabi, it's up to the executive to decide on this matter. So gusto ko lang pong klaruhin na hindi po nag-decide yung Supreme Court na dapat ilibing o hindi ilibing si former President Marcos sa libingan ng bayani. Ang sabi niya, ang ehekutibo ang magdedesisyon dito. So in short, I think this resolution is still very much important, no? Because decisions will still have to be made. Even if statements have already been given that the President is going to continue with this action, until it is done, there is still time to be able to weigh in on this decision. So I think more than the Supreme Court, probably this resolution is to be able to voice out what the sense of the senators and the Senate is on the matter. Secondly, Mr. President, there is sense in some of our colleagues what they have said about being careful about this decision, reading about it, and that resonates with me, although I still believe that it's good that we take a stand on this issue and that our voices be heard. You know, Mr. President, when a lot of young people ask me what the job of senators do, actually when I ask them, what do you think the job of a senator is, they always say, investigate. And I'm quick to correct them. Sabi ko, no, it's not investigation, it's legislation. Sometimes it's oversight. Sometimes it's investigation. But I always add the fourth purpose of the Senate, and that is to be part of the national conversation. To be able to weigh in, having our own national mandates on the national conversation. And so, Mr. President, I think on this particular issue, which is of national import, it's important that we make a stand, that the Senate is part of this national conversation. And I can respect, Mr. President, some concerns with reading the decision first or maybe even postponing. We probably will come to a vote on this matter. But definitely, Mr. President, mahalaga na meron tayong sasabihin sa issue na ito na napakahalaga sa ating bansa. Dahil kapag tahimik tayo, Mr. President, nakakasanay yung pagiging tahimik. At palagay ko, sa mga mahalagang issue ng ating bansa, kailangan magsalita tayo. So I'm totally in favor, Mr. President, of coming up with a decision. It is up to the body to decide whether it will be today, tomorrow, or a week from now. But I think it's important that we weigh in having our own national mandates and as a collegial body. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Aquino. Senator Pangilinan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, if the news is correct, my understanding is the petitioners will be filing a motion for reconsideration of the decision of the Supreme Court. Therefore, if that is true, then the decision has not been final. Having said that, Mr. President, in many instances in the past, this Senate, even while there are cases pending before the Supreme Court, we have taken a position. Mr. President, I recall when there was a petition before the Supreme Court on the constitutionality of charter change and the issue of whether or not the Senate should vote together or separately in terms of a constituent assembly. The Senate came out with 23 senators signing a resolution saying that the Senate must vote separately from the House in a constituent assembly. 23 senators, Mr. President, while the petition was pending before the Supreme Court. I remember that, Mr. President, because I was majority leader, and I was the one who personally asked each of the senators to sign the resolution. Mr. President, in the matter of EO 464, when it was pending before the Supreme Court, again, the Senate took on a position even as the Supreme Court was deliberating on the matter. Therefore, Mr. President, being a co-equal, Mr. President, not that we would like to interfere with the supreme jurisdiction or the supremacy of the Supreme Court in their jurisdiction, we have, from time to time, as a co-equal, expressed our own separate opinion on matters pending before the Supreme Court and matters affecting national life. Thus, Mr. President, I believe it is timely for us to address this matter before us. I beg to disagree, Mr. President, that, and I respect, of course, the position taken that they would like to see and read the Supreme Court ruling. Well, we will then say, obviously, the Supreme Court ruling is not yet final, and therefore, to read it until it is, while it is still pending, is also premature. In other words, when do we take a position, which I feel we should be able to do now? Mr. President, on this matter, therefore, because the motion is that we consider the resolution, I believe it is timely for us to consider the resolution today, Mr. President. And again, I respect the position taken by the other senators. Obviously, it would benefit many of us, or all of us, to be able to read the ruling. But looking at the title of this resolution, Mr. President, it is my view that we may be able to act independent of the ruling of the Supreme Court, because as the resolution reads, expressing the sense of the Senate that the crimes of the former President Ferdinand Marcos to the Republic and the human rights violations committed under his regime render him unfit to be buried at the libingan ng mga bayani. With this, Mr. President, it is my humble opinion that we may be able to tackle this resolution separately from precisely the ruling or the final decision of the Supreme Court on the matter.
Thank you, Senator Pangilinan. Senator Tiveros.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was said earlier, it was asked earlier, why must we inflict this divisiveness on the Senate? Mr. President, when the President, in a way, changed the situation of a long-standing agreement between the former President Ramos and the Marcos family about the former President's stay in Ilocos Norte by announcing his intention to bury the former President in the libingan, the Senate did not say, why are you, Mr. President, inflicting this divisiveness on the country? When the Supreme Court earlier today has ruled on the cases, the Senate also, we did not say, why is the Supreme Court inflicting divisiveness on the country? So I don't, with all due respect, Mr. President, I don't think that we should be overly troubled that we would be inflicting divisiveness even on our own ranks, because we are used to, and in my past months of working here, I have learned that we are perfectly capable of expressing our opinions as individual members of the chambers across different sets of those opinions and with full respect and that same camaraderie with which we opened the 17th Congress as a collegial body, as a co-equal, separate and co-equal branch of government to the other branches. And in order to be, indeed, as Senator Aquino said, to continue to be part of the national conversation. So I do look forward, Mr. President, to our voting on the motion put by the majority leader to decide on whether or not to consider the resolution today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Thank you. It is not uncommon that the majority leader agrees with the minority leader, Mr. President. It happens usually in the Senate. As a matter of fact, it happens vice versa. And considering the more often vice versa, Now, because of that, Mr. President, and before we vote, may I just put on record the fact that if we do not vote to take up the resolution now, it simply means instead of the majority leader filing for a motion to defer the issue to support the sentiment of some of our members, we can proceed to vote. If we do not vote in favor of the motion to consider, it does not mean that the resolution is lost. It only means that it will remain in the Rules Committee until the other members of the Senate have a copy of the Supreme Court decision and are ready to vote in favor to consider it on the floor, and they will be ready with their amendments. I think that is the situation that we are in right now. So voting against it does not mean we are making the or losing the resolution. It will remain in the Rules Committee. So if we are ready, or before we do that, may I move for a suspension, Mr. President?
Session is suspended. Tama, maganda yung
preferential. ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
To facilitate the votation, Mr. President, I move that we just the Senate conduct a voting which is raising of hands.
Raising of hands, okay.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is to consider Senate Resolution number 86, the title of which we all know. Okay, is there any objection? Is there any objection?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay, there
is an
objections.
objection aired
Okay.
by not only the minority leader but the other members.
Okay, so we're...
Well, if the minority leader is not objecting, I am objecting because of the issues that were raised.
Okay. So there's an objection. We have to divide the House. Let us vote by the raising of hands. Those who are in favor, the effect would be, if you're in favor, the effect would be we would proceed to consider Senate Resolution number 86. Those who are in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Okay. Those who are not in favor, raise your right hand. What's the result? I did not vote. I abstain. Who else? Who else abstained?
Mr. President, how was my vote recorded?
Senator Recto's vote was recorded as abstain.
May I explain my vote, Mr. President? My abstention.
Can I announce the result first?
Yes, you may, Mr. President.
What's the result?
Mr. President, before you make that ruling,
Senator,
go ahead. I was a majority floor leader. I understand.
6 affirmative votes, 6 negative votes, 2 abstention. So
No, that means the motion is lost.
the motion is lost.
Mr. President, may I explain
Senator
my
Recto will
vote?
explain his abstention.
I'll explain my vote, Mr.
Yes,
President.
a precisely way I made the manifestation earlier, Mr. President. I think it will be more prudent on my part for me to read first the decision of the Supreme Court before I act on the resolution itself, because at the appropriate time, I may introduce amendments to the resolution. So with that on the record, thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Senator Subiri is recognized.
Mr. President, it looks like we're pitting ourselves on a corner on both sides. Let's make this clear. The media is having a frenzy now. Now they're going to say those who voted against it is pro-Marcos, and those who vote in favor is pro-Aquino and or anti-Libingan. I think we have to make this clear. I voted to postpone because I want to see the merits of the Supreme Court decision being a non-lawyer. There's no love lost for me and the Marcoses because my family carried Leni Robredo in Bukidnon. She won by 200,000 votes, more than any in Region 6 because she led in Region 6. And therefore, our vote was a swing vote. My father carried her there. So, galit na galit sila sa pamilya namin. Ang akin lang, although my father and Deb grew up together, ang akin lang, he made the decision, he made his choice. I just want to make my choice, which is an informed choice. So, if we see the decision of the Supreme Court, then we can make an informed choice. That is it. It has no political color to this. Because I would have wanted to abstain. Just like the gentleman from Batangas and the gentleman from Cagayan de Oro. But I did not abstain because I want to see the decision of the matter at hand about the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Senator Subiri.
Mr. President.
Senator Tiveros.
Mr. President, I would just like to thank each and every member of our chamber for bringing the process thus far. I regret only that we have decided, and I accept the decision of our chamber, not to vote on the resolution itself today. I always believe that timeliness is always very important in communicating with our public. But I look forward to a time much sooner, hopefully, than much later, that through the leadership of the majority leader in the Rules Committee, that we will be able to put this resolution to the body for the sense of the Senate to be expressed to the public, and hopefully before our President will act on it, so that that sense of the Senate may hopefully carry some weight with him in his final decision. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Mr. President, for the record, I will give my assurance to the distinguished lady from Akbayan that as soon as I know that the members of the Senate have a copy already of the Supreme Court decision, I will bring it back to the floor.
Thank you very much,
And at
Mr.
this point, Mr. President, I move that the privileged speech of Senator Ontiveros be referred to the Committee on Rules.
There's a motion to refer the privileged speech of Senator Ontiveros to the Committee on Rules. Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. We were supposed to take up...
Before you proceed, Majority Leader, the Chair's understanding is that the result of that contentious vote is that we just do not take up Senate Resolution 86 today.
Today,
That's
yes.
it. That's the
Precisely.
effect. Yeah.
Precisely.
That's the only effect. Majority Leader?
Thank you, Mr. President. We were supposed to take up another privileged speech of Senator Gatchalian, but he wishes to be scheduled tomorrow. To those who would like to interpolate, we will schedule the October 12 privileged speech of Senator Win Gatchalian tomorrow. No, I was informed by Senator Gordon that he wishes to take the floor. I wonder if he still wishes to continue.
Mr. President, today,
Senator Gordon?
today is November the 8th, and this is the day that the mightiest typhoon on earth hit us. I was going to deliver a speech in honor of all the volunteers, in honor of all the people who died and who have also those who have recovered as well. I'd like to see it as an example of resilience. I'm willing to deliver it right now, if you like, but I don't want to. I think everybody's exhausted already at this point in time, and therefore I will do it tomorrow.
Thank you, Senator Gordon.
I'm very reasonable. You know, I do not want to divide the House all the time, Mr. President.
That's fine. Anyway, Mr. President, tomorrow it will be November 8th in the United States. Still be in time, Mr. President. Timely, still timely. Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved. Reference of business, Secretary.
Message from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 19 October 2016, House Bill number 3408 entitled An Act Appropriating Funds for the Operation of the Government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2017 and for other purposes, in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate.
Referred to the Committee on Finance.
Bills on first reading. 1230, an act strengthening the Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines as the National Human Rights Institution and for other purposes by Senator Laila M. De Lima.
To the Committees on Justice and Human Rights and Finance.
1231, an act integrating basic road safety and comprehensive driver's education in the curriculum of Enhanced Basic Education Program. Senator Grace Poe.
To the Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, Public Services, and Finance.
Resolutions. 220, resolution congratulating and commending Senator Emmanuel Manny Pacquiao for winning the World Boxing Organization Welterweight title on November 5, 2016 at Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Senator Cynthia Villar.
To the Committee on Rules.
221, congratulating and commending Kylie Fausto Versosa for being crowned as Miss International 2016 in the prestigious pageant held on 27 October 2016 at Tokyo Dome City Hall, Japan, Senator Sencha Villar.
To the Committee on Rules.
A resolution directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the various investment deals, particularly those involving public procurement, signed or entered into by the present administration during the President's state visit to China last 18 to 21 October 2016. Senator Laila De Lima.
To the Committees on Economic Affairs, Foreign Relations, and Finance.
223, an resolution congratulating and commending Mindanaoan filmmaker Sharon R. Dayok for winning the BIFF Mecenat Award in the 21st Busan International Film Festival held at the Busan Cinema Center in Centum City, Hyundai-gu, Busan, South Korea on 6 to 15 October 2016 for the movie The Crescent Rising. Senator Soberi.
To the Committee on Rules.
224, resolution congratulating and commending Kylie Fausto Bersosa for honoring the Philippines with the prestigious Miss International 2016 title in Tokyo, Japan on 27 October 2016. Senator Soberi.
The Committee on Rules.
225, resolution congratulating and commending boxing legend Senator Emmanuel Manny Pacquiao for winning the World Boxing Organization Welterweight title against Jesse Vargas on 5 November 2016 at the Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, marking his triumphant return in the ring. Senator Sobiri.
To the Committee on Rules.
A resolution directing the appropriate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the recent series of deaths of persons that are mainly drug-related killings by the police during police operations, under police custody and detention, and outside legitimate police duty to make the police more accountable and responsible to the people. Senator Richard Gordon.
To the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs.
Communications, letter from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas transmitting to the Senate copies of certified and authenticated circular letter numbers CL-2016-085 and 086 dated 13 and 19 October 2016 in compliance with Section 15A of Republic Act Number 7653, the Central Bank Act.
To the Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of November 9, 2016.
Is there any objection? There being none, the session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, November 9, 2016.
Authors of the measure.
The period of amendment is terminated, and there is now a motion to approve Senate Resolution number 217, taking into consideration proposed Senate Resolutions number 219, 220, 225, 227, 228, and making all senators present as co-authors thereof. Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. May we recognize Senator Manny Pacquiao?
Senator Manny Pacquiao is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to manifest my thanksgiving for the overflowing love and support that you have expressed. It is with great honor that I am the subject of Senate Resolution 217, authored by the Majority Floor Leader, Senator Vicente C. Soto III, and co-sponsored by Senator Mig Subere. I deeply appreciate the resolution commending and congratulating me for defeating GC Vargas. My comeback boxing match, where I was declared as the new WBO welterweight champion, is dedicated to all boxing fans and to all of you who believe in me. Nag-uumapaw ang aking pasasalamat sa suporta ninyo at sa sambayanang Pilipino noong hinarap ko si GC Vargas. Buong puso kong inaalay ang aking tagumpay sa inyo at sa ating mahal na Pilipinas. Bakas pa ang mga pasa sa aking mukha, subalit hindi ko ito alintana. Mapasaya lamang at makatulong sa ating mga kababayan at makapagbigay ng karangalan sa ating bayan. Mr. President, patuloy po akong nagpapasalamat sa Poong May Kapal dahil sa kanyang pagpapala at paggabay. Nararapat lamang na siya ay sambahin, purihin at pasalamatan. Boxing is my passion. I come fully alive wherever I am in the ring, but I have a greater passion serving our country. Just like you, Mr. President, my heartbeat is for our fellow men. My fight with GC Vargas is a story ended, but the tougher battles outside the boxing ring are yet to be won. There are bigger problems that we need to confront. There are more complicated issues that we need to clarify. Mr.
Winning hard to win championship fights. Manny Pacquiao, no doubt, is one of the greatest boxers in the world, and history would remember him as the first and only boxer to be hailed an 8-division world champion and the first boxer to win in the lineal championship in 5 different weight classes. But history does not stop him from being an octuple world champion. He made a habit of making history, and this time Manny has set his mark as the first sitting senator to win a boxing title. The first sitting senator. This he triumphantly accomplished after his match last Sunday against Jesse Vargas. Kaya mga kapatid, saludong-saludo po ako sa kanya, the Filipino boxing icon, Senator Manny Pacquiao's exemplary performance in a resounding roar of his return in the ring. And I filed this resolution number 225, to congratulate and commend Senator Manny Pacquiao for winning his match against Jesse Vargas. I now stand before you to honor him for his invaluable contribution to Philippine sports and consistently bringing pride to our country. He is not just the pride of the Senate, he is our national pride and inspiration to many. Mabuhay ka, Senator Manny Pacquiao.
Thank you, Senator Subiri. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, may we open the period of amendments, Mr. President?
An objection? Period of amendment for Senate Resolution number 217 is hereby in order.
Mr. President, before the resolutory portion, insert a whereas, which states, whereas Senator Manny Pacquiao deserves to be commended because notwithstanding the fact that he has been diligently working as a member of the Philippine Senate, he was able to successfully juggle with it his boxing career, make a return in the ring, and regain the WBO welterweight title, semicolon, Mr. President. So move.
There is a proposed amendment. Any objection? As read by the Majority Leader. There being none, the amendment is approved.
Mr. President, I move to adopt PS Resolution 217, taking into consideration PS Resolution 219, 220, 225, 227, and 228, and that all members of the Senate present be made co.
The 38th session of the Senate, in the first regular session of the 17th Congress, is hereby called to order. Let us rise for the opening prayer. Heavenly Father, we open by praising you for you are our creator and our provider. We owe everything to you. We also give you thanks. Thank you for the blessings, the gifts, and for taking good care of us. Thank you too for returning our brother, Senator Manny Pacquiao, to us safe and sound and successful and victorious. We would like to pray for the safety as well as the success of our other colleagues who cannot be with us today as they pursue their business abroad, especially Senator Frank Drilon, who is about to receive a very prestigious award from the government of Japan. Dear God, we believe that you have great plans for the Philippines. We humbly ask your guidance in everything we have to do for the good of our nation. We continue to pray for unity and peace in our country. May the discord between our brothers and sisters be healed by your divine grace and intervention, so our nation can finally be united for the good of our country and for the success of our government. May you use each one of us here in the Senate to bring glory to your name. Please continue to give us the wisdom and courage to practice prudence, temperance, justice, and fortitude in our daily lives. And may you continually shower us with your heavenly graces of faith, hope, and charity to guide us in our lives. In closing, allow us to quote Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. This we pray in your holy name. Amen. Secretary, please call the roll.
Roll call of Senator members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, Drilon, Ejercito, Escudero, Gatchalian, Gordon, Honasan, Hontiveros, Lacson, Ligada, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Po, Recto, Soto, Trillanes, Villanueva, Villar, Zuberi. Senate President Pimentel.
With 13 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 37th session Monday, November 7, and consider the same as approved.
There is a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal of Monday, November 7, 2016, and consider the same as approved. Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Mr. President, we'd like to acknowledge some guests in the Senate, Vice Mayor and Barangay officials of District 1 of Nagcarlan, Laguna, headed by Vice Mayor Amelia Hernandez and Councilor Arevalo, Mr. President.
Welcome to the local government officials of Nagcarlan, Laguna, and to all of our guests.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Chamber, I move that before we consider the reference of business, I move to consider PS Resolution 217, taking into consideration PS Resolution 219, 220, 225, 227, and 228.
There is a motion for us to consider before the reference of business Senate Resolution number 217, together with the related resolutions 219, 220, 227, 228. Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
May we ask Secretary to read only the title of the measure without prejudice to inserting into the records the entire text of the resolution.
Secretary.
Resolution commending and congratulating Senator Emmanuel Manny Pacquiao for defeating GC Vargas in his comeback boxing match held in Las Vegas, Nevada, and being declared as the new WBO welterweight champion, sponsored by Senator Vicente Soto III.
Mr. President, instead of sponsoring, I understand that Senator Migsubiri will also be co-sponsoring it. Let me just state for the record that the resolution is self-explanatory, and to consider also, aside from the resolution I filed, to consider 219, 220, 225, 227, and 228, subject to style. There is one whereas that I would want to include, which is not present in most of the resolutions. And this reads, Mr. President, Whereas Senator Manny Pacquiao deserves to be commended because notwithstanding the fact that he has been diligently working as a member of the Philippine Senate, he was able to successfully juggle with it his boxing career, make a return in the ring, and regain the WBO welterweight title. Mr. President, at the proper time, perhaps we may include that whereas. But at this point, may we ask Senator Zubiri to co-sponsor the resolution, Mr. President.
Senator Zubiri is recognized to co-sponsor Senate Resolution number 217.
Maraming salamat, Mr. President, Majority Floor Leader. Isang malaking karangalan para sa akin ang bigyang pugay ngayong hapon na ito ang isang kaibigan at kapwang mambabatas at kapwang taga Mindanao na si Senator Manny Pacquiao. I am particularly proud of the fact that this honorable senator and honorable champion was actually born in Barangay Magsaysay, Kibawe, Bukidnon. Mr. President, it was in his short years in Bukidnon, probably eating our beef there, before he moved to General Santos and grew up in General Santos. It's been 21 years now that Senator Pacquiao has been engaged in the world of professional boxing. Barely 5 feet tall and weighing in 106 pounds, when the young Manny Pacquiao set for a career in 1995 that would change his life forever. Now, more than 2 decades after, the light flyweight from Gensan and Bukidnon is known as one of the greatest athletes the world has ever known. Maraming pumuna sa muling pagbalik ng ating pambansang kamao sa boxing ring sa kabila na pagkakahalal nito bilang isang senador ng Republika ng Pilipinas. He juggled his training with his duties as legislator of this august chamber. At meron po nagsasabi at minsan ay iniinsulto pa ang ating pambansang kamao at sinasabing, paano naman siya magte-training and senador siya? Baka hindi siya pumapasok. At gusto ko pong sabihin sa ating mga kababayan na hindi po nag-absent ni minsan ang ating pambansang kamao in these last few months while training for his fight with Mr. Vargas. In fact, he's very active in attending committee hearings and in participating in deliberations and discussions on the floor. You know, the difficulty there, Mr. President, is in the Senate, there are a lot of mental challenges. Mental challenges can also be taxing to one's body. Kaya ako'y saludo sa kanya dahil coming out of the Senate, fighting all these mental challenges, he still has the time and the effort of training